I have been assaulted by someone who looked very much like the captain. I think it may have actually been the captain.
Well, in that case, Yeoman, it's imperative that we bring the captain into the room at this precise moment so that he can confront you about that.
Mr. Spock, that seems like a massive human resources violation.
Yes, but this is Starfleet, and that's how we do things. Hello and welcome to another episode of TrekHammer, where we're reviewing every single episode of Star Trek, right from the start to the very latest episodes. Today, we're on Season 1, Episode 5 of the original series. It's The Enemy Within. Now, this is a very interesting episode because it gets to the core of what it is to be a human being, essentially. And that is a great setting for a story. I think we can all agree Star Trek does that kind of philosophical storytelling very, very well. But there are some problems with the episode. Fundamentally, when we're looking at them now, we know that the Enterprise has shuttlecraft on board, therefore the problem with the transporter shouldn't actually put the lives of the crew at risk unless there's a reason that they can't launch the shuttle. And they never really give a reason why they can't launch the shuttle. So we've got people stranded on this icy planet, slowly freezing to death, when there are shuttles that could go down and pick them up. That's how we see it from our point of view, anyway. From the point of view of the show, the shuttlecraft isn't there. There is no such thing as a shuttlecraft at this point in Star Trek's history. It's all about the transporter. The shuttle arrives later. So from their point of view, these people are stranded and they've got to get them off this planet. The only way they can do it won't work, because the transporter at the moment, due to a chemical that's been beamed up accidentally, is splitting people in two, into a good half and a bad half. And that is a great idea for a story. I love this idea. How it runs out is interesting. I'll grant you that, because the idea is basically that in order to be a good leader and a good captain, you have to have the warrior aspect with your aggression and also the diplomat aspect with your thoughts. And the two can't work without one another. It's very interesting. I like the way they've put it together. There are bad points, yes. Some of the points where the captain being aggressive all the time and just being like a drunken boozer. He's interested in drink, he's interested in sex, he's interested in fighting, all of that. That doesn't necessarily come from aggression. I mean, in a lot of cases it is aggressive, but it feels more like it's not just the good and bad parts. It's like taking the id away from the ego, if you know what I mean, in a very Freudian sense. I know Freud's dealt with, and it's not real, and we've moved on from that. It's a very basic idea of how the psyche works, but that would have been a better explanation than, oh, it's the aggressive and the indecisive and all of that. Nevertheless, we have to come down to one big issue with the thing, and that is that the aggressive side of Kirk is played too harshly. It's like really overacted. Like the "I'm Captain Kirk" section of it. It would have been better if Kirk had had the option of playing it in a more dangerous style than essentially a pantomime villain. If he'd been aggressive but thoughtful, and therefore far more menacing, it would have made for a much better portrayal. But I don't think he was able to do that, because the style of direction doesn't seem to fit. And as a result, we get this comedy villain that has to be in your face what's going on. And that, unfortunately, spoils it a little bit. I think it would have been much better if he'd been like the thoughtful Captain Kirk, but with the aggression brought to the front. Whereas the other Captain Kirk was the thoughtful Captain Kirk, but with the let's get on, let's be friends, let's all live in peace brought to the front. And then we could have had something that we actually see in a later episode, funnily enough, where we have the guy who is fighting his other self between dimensions, the thoughtful one and the really demonic style of one. So I think that would have worked better. However, the show as it is still really well done. It's a very good episode. My biggest issue with it is the part with Yeoman Rand, where the actress had already suffered from quite a nasty sexual assault, and they then put her in that situation again, essentially. So I don't like that. I really don't like that aspect. I don't think it was necessary for the episode. What I also don't like is that she accuses the captain of a crime. And then the captain is brought in to speak to her about it. There is no way that that would pass on any other starship. Kirk's starship is badly run in that respect. He should have immediately, and in other episodes, the Captain Kirk that we see presented would have done this. He would have said, right, I will recuse myself from this, deal with that. Mr. Spock, take it as you need to, investigate this. It's a very serious claim. I think I haven't done it. I'm going to tell you I haven't done it, but I cannot be involved, so you handle it. That's how Picard would have done it. That's how Janeway would have done it. And Janeway killed Tuvix and made pacts with the Borg. So I see Captain Kirk as not being Captain Kirk in that respect. But he does have a defence, because he's not Captain Kirk at this point. He's half of Captain Kirk. So perhaps we can take that as an indication of his indecisiveness, where he's unable to really be in command. But that brings me on to my second issue with the episode. He knows that he is not quite all there. Literally not quite all there. Half of him is running around the ship somewhere else. So he's not all there. He's not all together. He's not fully in control of himself. And at no point does he relinquish command to his first officer, who is completely intact and is able to control himself. Spock actually asks him at one point, are you relinquishing your command? And he says no. This is not a situation where Spock should be taking that into consideration. Spock should have taken command. Picard would have given command to his first officer. In fact, we see him do exactly that in Rascals, when he originally tries to just continue because he's all there. His faculties are all there. There is no reason why he can't command the ship. But his officers don't let him because they're not used to taking orders from a 12-year-old captain. When that's put to him like that, he realises that, yes, he is fully in control of himself and can command the ship, but he doesn't have the respect of his officers at the moment because they're not sure that he is all there and can command the ship. It's a fair assumption that they're going to second guess him because they're not entirely sure that this change to him when he becomes younger hasn't affected his mind. Therefore, he immediately relinquishes command to Riker. Kirk should have done the same thing in this episode, and Spock shouldn't have even asked him. Spock should have, at the point where it's obvious that there are two Kirks and neither of them are wholly Kirk, Spock should have assumed command. So, I think there are some fundamental issues with the script, but perhaps the transporter accident isn't one of them. Also, the fact that they essentially just stuck horns and a fur coat on a dog to try and make it look like an alien is also not one of the bad points of this episode, because it's funny from our point of view, but back in the day they had a limited budget, so of course they're going to do things like that. Altogether, despite the issues with it, this is still a very good episode, and it gives us another look at an excellent way of building up to what became Star Trek, because it's still not fully there at this point. So in that respect, I am going to give this a solid 6.5 on the warp factor scale. Warp factor 6.5, Mr. Sulu. When you get back from the planet, that is. Anyway, I hope you've enjoyed this, and if you have, do remember to click that like button. If you agree or disagree, I'd love to hear your views on this episode in the comments section down below. But until next time, I've been Zoe Kirk Robinson. You've been watching TrekHammer on the All Mouse Media channel. Live long and prosper. I'll see you next time. If you like the show, please consider supporting me on Patreon. It really does help create future videos. That's patreon.com/Zoe Kirk Robinson. And I've got an extra special thanks going out to Chief89, Sam Yates, Retro Mickey 82, Mo Henry, and George Bortorini. Thank you so much, guys.